Well, in a way, this is an update to a story that we were covering last year. And basically, this is falling into the age of consent. Ah, you thought it was verification? No. Age of consent laws that we have around the world, because there are many countries that are trying to change their rules and laws, reducing the age of consent. Uh, you're hearing this out of France and some other European countries. There are those in California that are trying to curtail the laws by creating new laws that sort of skirts over the age of consent law when it comes to homosexuality. And that is a wrong thing to do. I mean, hey, listen, California is literally, it's literally turning into Elysium over there. If you're on California, I mean, it is really bad over there. I mean, San Francisco is no longer San Francisco. It has just become a wreck of itself. A beautiful city like San Francisco, was the home of liberalism and the hippie and all that, and the elites have taken it apart, and stores are leaving and things are burnt out. And this is the continuation that, and the hypocrisy is that when you screamed at this particular country and not realize what's going on there, and you say to yourself, well, listen, you have lollies and anime and manga, that they all have these young looking girls and stuff, underage girls, and they're having sex and this and that, and nudity and big breasts, and this is not what we want, showing to our children. And our children, we got to protect our children.
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children?
This is what they tell you every day. Not realizing that anime and manga, Lolly, are different levels. Vice tried to knock this off. And basically, as I said before, anime and manga, there's something for everybody there. All ages. Okay, this is something that, not every anime is for kids, not every anime are for adults. And then there's some anime for a little bit of both. This is the way they make it. The same thing with manga. But before we get into this article from the Japan Times, I wanted to tell you, guys, thank you. Thank you for those who have subscribed. We're about 50 right now. We're about 50 away from getting to 700. We got about little under 2 weeks left in the month, because it's a short month, obviously, and hopefully we'll be able to get there, and then that we'll be able to give that march down to the 300 down to go before we get to 1,000 subscribers. That would be so great if we can do that in 2023. Once again, thank you for those who subscribe, like, share, and commented. So let's get into this. From the Japan Times, Japanese government panel calls for raising of age of consent to 16. Now, before we read into this, I just want to make a notation that I didn't make in the last video. In Japan right now, it's 13, which they're going to be raising it. But in Tokyo, in the city of Tokyo, it is 18 is the age of consent. So there are rules depending on what city you're in. Most of the cities are 13. Tokyo is 18. So it goes to show you what thinking goes on in Japan. A government panel proposed Friday that the age of consent be raised from 13 to 16. The Criminal Law Subcommittee of the Legislative Council, which advises the Justice Minister, also sought to make definitions more specific for the crimes of forcible sexual intercourse and indecent assault in order to make them easier to build cases for such crimes and sustainable related charges in court. The proposals were included in the outline for the amendment, the penal code drawn up by the subcommittee. And I said this in the last video. One thing that, the proposal itself was the proposal, but what it needs from that point on is to dot their I's, cross their T's, the penal codes and all that. And this is what they're doing. Right now, we're at this level, which they're fixing everything to put this law into act. The Legislative Council expected to approve the outline in mid-February, which we're at that point, and make the report for it for Justice Minister Ken Sato. The government hopes to enact the penal code revision during the ongoing session of Parliament, which is slated to run through June 21st. Many developed countries set their age of consent from 14 to 16, but there are those out there that's setting it lower. Countries like Angola and the Philippines both have the age of consent of 12. And also the Maldives, which is age of consent is 9 years. Angola, Mexico, Philippines, South Sudan, yeah, those are 12. So Japan is not the low. A lot of people say Japan is the lowest. They're not the lowest. There are other countries that are continuing to reduce their age of consent or create some law that basically would outline to the point where basically curtail, like what California did with that law about homosexuality. The outline calls for a stipulation that, as in the current law, sexual intercourse with a person under 13 is illegal regardless of consent, while intercourse with a person aged 13 to 15 will be punished if the perpetrator is 5 or more years older. The narrow scope of punishment for intercourse with a 13 to 15-year-old reflects on the subcommittee's aim to decriminalize intercourse between those of the same age group. The current penal code stipulates that the acts of assault or threat must be used to constitute forcible sexual intercourse and indecent assault. These are interpreted as acts that make it extremely difficult for the victims to resist, and there have been cases in which perpetrators were found not guilty due to difficulties identifying resistance by victims. A draft proposal released last October calls for the merging constructive forcible sexual intercourse with forcible sexual intercourse and constructive indecent assault with an indecent assault with indecent assault. It is said by perpetrators will be punished if they engage in bisexual acts, making it difficult for victims to refuse through any of the 8 acts, including assault or threat by causing mental or physical disorder and denying the victim the opportunity to refuse. The draft proposal was amended after some of the members subcommittee pointed out that victims may be perceiving of having the obligation to express refusal. The proposed requirement for establishing cases for sex crimes was changed to make it difficult for the victim to form or express fulfillment, intent, non-consent, or taking advantage of such situation. The outline also called for extending the statute of limitations by 5 years for all sex crimes. These moves reflect the fact that it is difficult for people to speak out about being victims of sex crimes. In addition, the outline sought the establishment of the crime of secretly photographing and filming victims' sexual body parts and underwear, as well as sexual intercourse. That's upskirting, as they would call it. Providing such images to other people was also sought to be made punishable. It is called for punishing the grooming of victims under the age of 16 for acts of obscenity and clarifying that forcible sexual intercourse can be committed between spouses. There's a lot more they got to do. I mean, I understand, some of this is basic, some of this you may disagree with. One thing about, and I'll say this today, knowing now what I do now, if I knew back then, understand that if you are a 14-year-old and you're having sex with a 14-year-old, you shouldn't be having sex with a 14-year-old. You're not old enough at that point. In some cases, you don't understand what is going on. I mean, kids are smart. Yes, I understand that. A lot of them are smart these days. But when it comes to situations like this, they're not taught enough at home. And the way situations, and I don't see it too big in Japan because of the way things are going in Japan lately. When it comes to relationships and stuff like that, that people, that their population is decreasing. At least the birth rates have gone down. So it's you're not seeing a problem of that majorly that nature in there. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but it just doesn't exist in the way like it does in other countries like the United States. When is it that you don't hear a story on the mainstream media about someone who's underage and having sex? And like I said, I would say 19 would be the proper 19, 20. You say, well, 18's adult. Yeah, but I think you need to have some time to understand relationship. See, that's the thing, is that kids really don't understand relationships. Sex is one thing. Relationships is another when it comes down to it. And, it's something that has to be understood. It was different years ago when I was young and before me. That when you look at the stories of the 40s and the 50s, it was a different time period, and of course the age of consent was different back then as well. But this is a good direction for Japan. There are many things that Japan needs to fix, and one of them is this happens to be one, and the other one is a population issue, which is low birth rates and stuff like that, depression, and many other mental issues that are going on in the country of Japan. People push, like Vice TV and stuff like that, that, the entertainment is the problem that around the world because of Japan. But the thing about it is that Japan's entertainment is just another form of entertainment. Manga, anime, porn, it doesn't matter. Hentai, it's just all different forms of entertainment. No one's forcing you to watch it. See, that's the thing about it is nobody is forcing you to watch this product. And they say, well, our kids are watching it. What are they watching? Could you explain what are they watching? What's wrong with Dragon Ball Z and Yu Yu Hakusho and Attack on Titan? And they'll say, well, Attack on Titan, they're pushing all this politics. And it's a story. It's a story of character. Watch it. Maybe sit down and watch it with your kids. You might find it interesting. Full Metal Alchemist, same situation. You heard the whole situation of Full Metal Alchemist on there. I mean, there are some anime out there, Goblin Slayer, Redo the Healer, and many others that, okay, you got nudity in there, you got fan service and stuff like that. But it depends on how it's done. I mean, fan service has been around a long time. A long time. I mean, you've seen a lot of fan service in Neon Genesis Evangelion. You could say that as well. And you look toward many others throughout. Go through the whole history of on there. You're always going to find something that someone's going to disagree with. But that's always the situation. See, the thing about it is, and here's the scary part to the situation. And we have a story coming out on this. There are those out there that want to rewrite our existence, our entertainment, our novels, or books. Now they're after our books, our literature. There's literally, who is it? Is it Robert Davi on there that they're going after now? Dali on there, the guy who did Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. They're going after his books now. What they're going to do is they're going to go in, and the people that own the rights to the books, they're going to rewrite them. That's the new book burning, folks. The new book burning. And the only reason that I mentioned this with the story of an age consent is exactly what's going on in our schools. Meanwhile, they want to change the age of consent rules, and also they want to teach sex to grade school kids. Okay? This has nothing to do with LGBTQ as far as homosexuality and stuff like that, but they want to teach homosexuality into the schools. They want to teach sex to the kids on there, whether it's straight or gay or trans. Okay? They are too young to understand this. And it's the same thing with the books. If you feel as a parent that your child's not ready for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory or Matilda or some certain other novels, then don't let them read it yet, or read it with them. Know what your kid is doing in their schools, what they're learning. Kids can't grow up these days. The way if people don't put sexualization onto there. The gay community, there are those in the gay community, there was Gays Against Groomers. They're fighting against these people, these radicals in their own groups. They're trying to push an agenda to sexualize children. And this is the truth. It is the truth. Ask those people. Go look at these people. Ask someone, if you have a gay friend, ask them. There are many people that don't believe into this. But yet that's not what the media tells you. Media tells you, oh, protect the children, but we're going to teach them sex. Do you know when you need to teach kids sex? Is in biology and in high school. That's where I learned it, was in high school. And I was in Catholic high school, mind you. Understand that. Grammar, reading, writing, arithmetic. You got a Baltimore school out there that has 23 schools that the kids in all the kids in those 23 schools don't score above the standards of reading and mathematics. Scary. And the money they pump into them. Meanwhile, another school on the other side in Indiana gets chastised and called racist because they have a lot of great stuff. Swimming pools and tracks. And basically they have a place where they, shop. They got shop. I was shocked. Shop and home economics. That's what should be in all of our schools. But see, the problem is, where's all the money getting diverted? To that point. All the money. And you may say, well, they get more money up there. No, they don't. Actually, those schools in Baltimore get a hell of a lot more money than the ones in Indiana. So if you're going to try to throw race in there, you're wrong. And it's the same thing with this. You can't throw race on any of this. Age of consent. Protect our children. That's the most important thing. Protect them. They are our future. And like I said, age of consent laws, very important right now. If you're in a country that they want to reduce the age of consent, don't let them do it. And if there are some laws on there, get them abolished, get them changed. Especially like in California, that law. That is the most ridiculous law I've ever seen. I mean, California is making some of the craziest laws you'll ever see. And this is what is driving people out of California. California has become a literal wasteland. A total wasteland. And, people not realizing that. It's just like, it's like I said, it's looking like Elysium and Elysium / Escape from LA. That's what's happening to it. I mean, there are many nice places in California still viable, but still too damn expensive to live there. So we'll continue to monitor this through Japan. I guess probably we won't know anything unless something happens between now and before June, because basically their parliament session runs until June 21st. So comment in the comments line below. I want to hear your thoughts on this, on age of consent. If you're in another country outside the United States, tell me, what are your age? Are they changing age of consent rules? What are the laws in your territory on there? I would like to hear that. It is important out there that we know what's going on out there, because basically, we have to protect our children. Foremost of anything, protect the children. So subscribe, like, share, and we'll talk again on the next video. Thank you for tuning in, and bye-bye now.